Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect, episode 285. It is Sunday, March 10th as we record. I'm David Lotz. Joining me this episode is Bobby Jackson.
Hey, what's up?
Yasha Wilson.
Hey, everybody.
And Michelle Hillard.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
What's up, guys? How was your week? How's everybody?
Busy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Apparently it was the theme of the week thing, because, same here.
Yeah.
It was a crazy week.
Yeah.
Cheers to a new week is all I'll say.
Yeah.
So with that, what are we waiting on? Let's just get right into
Let's get real here. What happened this weekend?
Here. Captain Marvel happened this weekend. She happened big time at the box office. She did pretty well. What, 153 domestically?
Yeah, she pretty much crushed it.
Yeah. The troll war, whatever you want to call that's going on around this movie did not work. So
not even a little bit. It was embarrassing. And it's at the same time, with that said, let's just address that for a second. Why? Why really? Why troll and just blatantly hate on a movie for whatever the fuck reason? Excuse my language, but it's why is that necessary? Why, if you're gonna write a review or just say hey, I didn't like it because of this, or hey, I loved it because of this, but why actually intentionally go after this movie and try and destroy it?
So I was gonna ask maybe if Bobby, you could touch up on this, because I have a feeling you know it best, but I mean, from my understanding, I think it's mostly surrounding the fact that she had made some comments that I think were completely misinterpreted about males or white males coming to screenings of the film. Is that what this all had to do with, Bobby?
No, that's only part of the equation, I think. There's some of that, because Brie Larson had made a statement where she was saying that, she wanted at her film junkets to have more.
That's right.
More inclusive audience or reporters. And people took that statement as she said it to mean that she didn't want white males to be at her film junkets. But she was just saying she wanted more people of different backgrounds and different people of color as well,
right,
to be able to be a part of these film junkets, and wanted to see more of that. And then even on the best of intentions of people who read it properly, they still want to label that as being social justice warrior, and then they're just immediately against it because that seems to be a bad thing to be if you're a social justice warrior. So there's that, but then also upon that, there's pushback because there's people who don't want Marvel, Disney succeeding, who are on that other side of the fence, who may like DC properties. So there's that group in there as well. And then there's the other group of people who don't want a woman superhero movie to do well. And so they're pushing against that as well. So it was fighting against all these different things from all these different, types of people who basically have nothing better to do with their lives other than campaign against a movie that it's not really, obviously, as we've seen this weekend, working. So hopefully after this, they'll just realize that what they're doing isn't having any kind of effect, and they'll just drop it.
Right.
Seriously, let it go. It's just how much time do you have on your hands to just completely misinterpret anything that's being said? In this retrospect of what she was saying, it's yes, because inclusive and having a diverse, opinion when it comes to reporters is a bad thing. Really? That's what you took from that? You wanted to take the most negative output from what she said, it sounds like, at all.
Right. That's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, with that, we've all seen the movie, so let's get to, better business here, and let's talk about what we thought about the film. And I'm curious to hear from you, everybody. But Yasha, why don't we start with you? What did you think of Captain Marvel? Spoiler free, of course.
Oh, God damn it! I thought we were gonna go to the Bowl of Destiny. You bastard. Okay.
The bowl's like across
All
the
right.
room.
Like that's way on the other side of the room, man.
It's in hibernation until like next year's top 10 show, I think.
Well, we usually go to the bowl for things like this. Okay. As far as what I thought, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was pretty badass. Like, I feel like they missed the mark a couple of times when it came to some of the humor that they're going for. But overall, I really enjoyed it. Like, I could sit down and watch it probably again tomorrow. Maybe not in the theater, but if I had it on digital release or something like that, I could probably go through it again and just really enjoy it. I thought the special effects were fantastic when it came to Coulson and, well, Samuel L. Jackson and the gentleman who plays Coulson, Clark Gregg. David? Clark Gregg. Yeah, Clark Gregg. Yeah. The special effects to have them de-aged in the entire movie, like, that was pretty awesome. Like, I was just kind of blown away with how amazing our special effects have come. You know, I mean, yeah, we can make somebody fly and stuff like that. That's not even an issue anymore. But like, to have the up close interaction with these, you know, actors, and they're young, like, I was just like blown away. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the movie for the most part. I really did like it. Like, I thought it was done very, very well. Like I said, I mean, I wish they had left some of the humor from the trailers for the movie theater, because, you know, sometimes they release a little bit too much of the funny parts. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun movie. I dug it.
Nice.
Is it one of my favorites, or is it one of my top 10 favorites for the Marvel Universe? No, probably not. I was actually just sitting here while we were setting up and talking. I just was thinking, I was like, okay, like, so when all of these are available on DVD and stuff like that, you know, because this takes place before the events of Iron Man, it's like, what would be like to set them all up in like chronological order of like what there should be watched in would be so much fun. Like, sitting this one in like somewhere just before the Iron Man, you know, right before Iron Man, when that really started, and just kind of like go through it that way. Like, you know, Captain America, watching Captain America first, and then moving right along, like after that. Like, I just thought it was fun. You know, I thought it's going to be really fun to like have that Marvel marathon.
Right. Bobby, what did you think of the movie?
Yeah, I thought it was good. To me, it felt like a very good, solid start for this character into the MCU. There was things where I really enjoyed the pacing of the movie. At the beginning, it started slow-ish, but it was world building to me, so I enjoyed that part of it, getting to see different areas of the MCU, corners of the MCU, and getting to kind of learn about her as she was learning about herself. I like that plot device in terms of it wasn't just a typical origin story where you just start from the beginning and she gets her powers and all that. You start with her already having up her power, and then you kind of see and go from there. So I like that way that it was structured. And the de-aging, like Yasha mentioned, was so good, especially with Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. That was like perfect. The Clark Gregg stuff, it was weird at times, honestly. There were some things there that looked a little uncanny valley, but for the most part, when it seems like, and rightfully so, since Sam Jackson is in pretty much the majority of the movie, they spent the most time trying to make him look right, and I thought they did a fantastic job there. I also really enjoyed finally getting the Skrulls into the MCU and what the implications of that could mean later on down the line. I thought Brie Larson did a really good job in embodying the character of Captain Marvel, and I really wasn't for sure if she was going to be able to, just based on some of the other stuff that we had seen. I think we had talked about it during the trailers, how there was a little bit of stiffness, it seems like, in some of the line delivery. But once you get to see it all laid out in front of you, I felt like she did a fantastic job in terms of being this character, and I'm looking forward to seeing her do more and more threats that she will face later on. Overall, I would definitely say it's one of those movies where it felt like, to me, like if you stacked up all the Marvel movies, it lands somewhere in the middle high area for me, but not as good as some of the other ones. But I think that's also because we've had sequels of some of these other ones, so they've already established their characters and they've gotten to go to a new place in the sequels, whereas this is still sort of an origin story. So it falls in line with some of the other origin stories that I really liked, but aren't kind of at the top tier echelon of MCU movies just yet. So, but it's a good movie and it's a good first at bat. So I think it has me absolutely looking to see what she does in Endgame and beyond.
All right, Michelle, what do you think of Captain Marvel?
I really, really liked it. I really enjoyed this film a lot. I unfortunately did not love this film. I didn't walk out just going, yes, Captain Marvel is now my favorite. Like, I didn't have that moment, and maybe I had my expectations set a little high on this one, possibly going into it, and I'll admit that might be it. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I do like the origin stories, but I found this film's writing and directing to be a little lacking, and I think that kind of brought it down a little bit. And I will say it was directed by and written by both Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. And I know that they can do good work, but this kind of missed the mark for me with them. Like, I just kind of felt like my biggest issues are, like, the storyline just felt kind of scattered, that I feel like Carol Danvers' character kind of gets just kind of lost in this jumble of finding the origin story. And I think it's hard to connect to her really until the last third of the film. So for most of it, I don't feel like the audience connects with her. And then the other problem is unfortunately, and I love Brie Larson, I think she's a fabulous actress, I don't think this was one of her better performances, and I don't necessarily think that's on her. I feel like this goes back again to the directors and the writers. I think there's a disconnect of what was going on there and what they were trying to accomplish and what I think was being conveyed to her to get across on the screen. But otherwise, though, and I mean, I know that sounds like a lot of haterade. At the same time, like, I really liked this film. Like, I found myself really loving the camaraderie between not just Carol Danvers and Nick Fury, but between her and her best friend, and just seeing, the empowering embodiment that she has of women, like just what she represents and what she does even before she becomes Captain Marvel. Like, she really, pushed boundaries and is what I think a lot of women try to be, is a strong, independent thought, forward-thinking woman, and I think that's what she was doing, and I really liked it, and I thought the special effects were really great. I liked the fight sequences at the end of the film were good. I feel like the stuff that happened at the beginning of the film, quite honestly, was not very memorable. Like, I feel like I can forget those fight sequences in the beginning, but then towards the end, I was like, yes, this is awesome. I was super all into it. Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun. Like, I like the 90s nostalgia of it. I love seeing Agent Coulson, even though he doesn't, he's fresh and he's just a rookie. Like, I enjoyed a lot of the things. I like kind of the weird, like buddy cop feel that's going on between Fury and her. Kind of, they seem to have a good thing kind of going between the two of them. I just wish the film didn't feel so scattered as it does through the first 2/3 of the film. But I feel like it really gains its legs there in that third act. I feel like it really finds its path and its home, and it gets to a comfort spot. And I feel like it was really solid at the end. And I'm not saying that the end should make up for everything else, but if that hadn't done it, then I wouldn't be praising this film as much as I am. I really, it sits really well with me. I'm very happy with this film and the way Marvel has finally brought her into where we are in the cinematic universe.
Yeah, I guess that leaves me. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of the same as everybody. Like, I feel like it sounds like we're mostly on the same page because, yeah, I really like the movie. I also didn't absolutely love it, but I really enjoyed it. But yeah, there's things about it which, yeah, I wish were a little better. But again, with that said, I thought it was a solid MCU film. Not my favorite. Somewhere in the middle. Definitely not my least favorite. There's definitely worse than this. I mean, there's some things about it that, like, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is, yeah, Brie Larson. I will say, kind of, you touched on this, Bobby, and you know, you just touched on it too, Michelle. Bobby, you mentioned how we had talked about when we watched one of the trailers that some of her dialogue, like delivery, seemed a little stilted, and you know, I guess you feel like, yeah, it turned out that it actually worked fine. But for me, actually, I found that her performance in the movie to still be kind of similar to what I saw in that trailer. Like, and I don't know if that's on her or the direction that she was receiving. I'm curious to see how she plays this role in Endgame and in future films. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, I found myself not loving her performance in this, and it's hard to say because I really like Brie Larson, and there's a certain aspect to her, what she brings to this character, that I do really like. Like, I don't want to see anybody else play the role, but I don't know. I feel like it could be better, and that I struggle with that. Like, yeah, I mean, I think there's times in the middle of the movie it does feel like maybe it drags a little bit. But I feel like a lot of my complaints too are, though, fairly minor. Like, I know you and I disagree on this, Michelle, but I as much as I love the 90s nostalgia, there's times where I felt like it almost felt a little too constant, the 90s needle dropped music being put in the film. It got to a point where I was like, okay, I don't think this 90s song belonged here, or this 90s song belongs here. It's like, I get that we're in the 90s. I love the 90s too, but to me, it became a bit much with the 90s music, where I felt like it was put in places it didn't really belong. And then there were times where because I really enjoyed this score by, if I'm getting her name correctly, Pinar Toprak, who I believe is the first female composer on an MCU film.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I loved her score, but there's not a lot of it because there's a lot of 90s music instead. And for me, I think that's unfortunate, but otherwise, though, yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed the film. I agree with you guys on the effects of their de-aging. I agree with you too, though, Bobby. There was something about Clark Gregg that there were times that I'm like, it's not working for me quite as well as Samuel L. Jackson. At the same time, it still looks really good. I'm wondering, though, as the more I think about it, is it just that because he's having to be so young, maybe he almost looks a little too perfect? Like, you know, like, because he does. Too smooth? Yeah.
I mean, I will say Clark Gregg's aged well for a guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so to de-age him, it almost is like...
Just put hair on him and you're good.
I was going to say, it's really just kind of filling in his hairline a little bit and smoothing out very few wrinkles. So it almost is like he got too polished, maybe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because the man has aged well. Like, he looks good for his age. Like, not that he's old. It's just he's aged very well in normal life. So to de-age him, I think it's hard to find that line, maybe.
Right.
But I think the special effects were really good. Honestly, even just in the fight sequences, in the plane fights that you see later on, and in the sequences out in space are great. Like, I'm very happy with everything special effects wise in this film goes. Like, from top to bottom, I'm super happy with it.
And going back to the 90s thing, I love the 90s and nostalgia for the most part. I even loved how this movie in a lot of times felt like it was shot like a 90s movie. You know, there's a couple shots when she's on Earth that in action scenes that are shot like 90s action movie scenes. Yeah. Even just other shots. There's one shot where she's walking out of somewhere and there's kind of the camera just like pulls out from where she is, and then on, you know, a camera or a car in the foreground, I think with Nick Fury in it. And it just, you have to see it, but it just, as soon as it happened, I'm like, man, this feels so 90s. Like, not just because everything looks 90s, like just that shots, a lot of shots. It felt like it was shot that kind of movie.
Yeah.
So I dug that. I dug that they didn't just stick it in the 90s. They're like, oh, we're gonna really make this feel like a 90s movie.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I don't quite understand. I mean, I've seen some, I feel like most of the reception has been pretty positive. I've definitely come across some like negative stuff, and I'm just like, I don't get it. Like,
there's been some really negative stuff, and I've been like, I feel like you're pushing it a bit much, but there's, for the most part, it's definitely a positive vibe that's out there for sure.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, I don't understand why so much negativity. Like, then I started to hear some really good things, and I was just like, okay, well, that makes sense. You know, it sounds like it's just going to be a fun movie. But then I kept starting to hear like these people just talking like, oh, it wasn't that great. It wasn't good. It was this. It misses the mark. And I'm like, what mark do you think they were aiming for? Like, I mean, it's pretty spot on of what I was hoping it would be. It was an introduction to a character that we didn't know about, and it was a solid one. I mean, I feel kind of like you, David. Like, I mean, I like Brie Larson. I don't think that this necessarily was the greatest fit. And I think that may attribute action she was being given. Because when it came to the emotional scenes and the times when she was supposed to be emotional and show, you know, type of reaction, she was really good. But then there are times when it's just like the regular dialogue, and I was just like, you can be more than just a stiff board and like just sound like you're reciting lines. I don't know. Maybe it was just me.
No, and I'll agree with you, Yasha, too, about the humor. There's a lot of times the humor, I don't know. I hesitate to call it bad, because a lot of times it was more like I kind of inside, I kind of like, huh, okay, that's funny. Like, it wasn't
a small internal chuckle. There was nothing audible about it.
But a lot of it, in the theater we were in, there was a lot of it. There was little to no reaction to a lot of the humor. That I don't think I was the only one that wasn't finding it funny.
Because you just sit there and it's like, huh, that was funny. Just like your reaction, like you just said. I was just like, there are plenty of times when I was just like, huh. You know, like you said, internal. But it's like, I think they were expecting like a much stronger, like, oh man, that was good. But it just really, it wasn't there.
No, yeah. And there were some jokes like that, especially I think between Captain Marvel and Nick Fury, that were especially like that.
Yeah, those jokes fell flat, I think. I think they're trying really hard to make it very buddy-buddy, and it just kept falling flat a little bit with their jokes. But at the same time, like, I feel like their chemistry, as far as like when they weren't trying to make jokes with each other, was good. But I felt like when they were trying to be buddy-buddy jokey, it wasn't good. Like, it was very weird to watch. Like, I was like, this is so awkward. Like, I feel like they just can't be natural around each other. Almost.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're not talking spoilers, but I will, as is expected in a Marvel movie. Yeah, there's a Stan Lee cameo in it, and it's perfect.
It is the perfect Stan Lee cameo.
I love it.
It was so good. It was that one. I almost can dare say might be my favorite.
I'd probably say it might be my favorite. Yeah.
I haven't sat and like thought about every cameo he's done in the now 21 films of Marvel films. But if I sat and I thought about it, it would for sure probably be in the top 3.
Other than this one, the one I think back to that I think I really like was, and I think it was the first Captain America, where he's playing like a military like officer or something, I want to say. And I think what I liked about it is that it was because of the period dress he was in. And I think whatever, he had like glasses on. I don't think that were his normal looking glasses, maybe. I don't know what it was, but I liked that it was obviously Stan Lee, but it wasn't as obvious. Like I felt like he blended into the movie a little better than a lot of his other cameos, where it's like, as much as I enjoy them, as much as I like his cameos, a lot of times it is like, oh, there's the cameo. It's a jarring experience. Except for that Captain America one, where I'm like, oh, I feel like he belongs here, you know?
Right.
But this one, I loved this one.
It was really good.
Really good.
It was really, really, really good.
Can we just address the Marvel opener with the banner too, though? Like, how awesome was that with nothing but Stan Lee?
It was good.
I thought that was beautiful. Like, I got goosebumps.
Dude, I got teary-eyed. I welled up. I was literally sitting there going, oh, man, Marvel, you're getting me. The movie hasn't even started.
So well done. Yeah, it was so well done. And then I think they said "Thank you, Stan" or something like that right at the beginning. I was just like, I mean, the opening banner with nothing but Stan Lee and all these different cameos and appearances and everything, just nothing but Stan. I was just like, bravo, guys! Like, bravo! Like, way to get the nostalgia going already. Like, I mean, just try it right out.
Was that known like publicly before the movie dropped, or
No,
I don't think so. No.
Okay, yeah, because it was a surprise to me.
It was a surprise to me too.
Okay.
But a pleasant surprise. Like, I do like it when Marvel can actually hold a few secrets. I think it's lovely. It really makes me happy.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, like with this film, I will say, like, I like the women empowering feel that it has without it just being super in your face. Like, there was a few moments that I was like, yes, like, that's right. Like, just it felt really good and natural and not super forced, and I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, there's one moment in particular, and you and I have talked about this off air too, like the kind of female empowerment kind of it worked. Like
There was a moment I teared up for it, honestly.
It was like a forced, okay, here comes this is a female superhero moment. Like, no, like it was well done. I thought it was powerful and I liked it a lot.
I teared up a little. I literally again, and it was the second time in the theater. Basically, it was the Stan Lee thing, and then this, and I kind of was like getting emotional. I'm like, this is really good, really good.
And yeah, like I think you said this, Yasha, about seeing it again. I do want to see this again in the theater, and it doesn't have, I think, much to compete against for the next week or two. Yeah. So I mean, I know I don't see a lot of movies twice in the theaters anymore, but I'd like to see this again and kind of see how I feel after a second viewing.
I have a feeling
you'll feel a little bit different.
Really?
Yeah. Well, let me rephrase that. You'll watch it differently.
Okay.
So and that's because of stuff that I can't say that we haven't gotten the spoilers yet, but you'll definitely watch it differently. Right. And yeah, I got a chance to see it a second time yesterday.
All right.
Did you really already?
Yeah.
My concern with seeing a second time, I think, is what I was saying earlier. My one main complaint, I think, is the overall pacing and kind of the choppiness of the narrative a little bit. And I feel like that could still bother me a lot on a second viewing, but I'm open to it.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, speaking of spoilers, unless you guys have anything else you want to say, non-spoiler discussion, we can jump into some Captain Marvel spoilers. Why not?
Do we do a couple minutes to spoil us?
A couple minutes, 30 minutes, whatever we do.
Wow,
yeah,
wow. Huh?
There's definitely a decent amount to talk about with spoilers for sure.
Wow.
I mean, come on. It's a Marvel movie, Michelle. Do you know us?
Well, okay then.
Do we know each other? With that, all right. Here's the warning. We're going to talk about spoilers for Captain Marvel from here on out for the rest of the show. So I think we could all agree, if you haven't seen the movie, you should go see it.
Yes.
So go check it out if you haven't seen the movie yet, and come back and then listen to our spoilers. And then also check out Spoiler Effect, because Michelle and I have actually already recorded a kind of a spoiler review of the film.
Yeah.
So that's a separate podcast feed. So check that out as well.
So at this point, the Star Trek Red Alert is going up.
Yes.
Spoilers.
Indeed. Spoilers.
Danger, Will Robinson. There's no spoilers. Okay.
All right.
I actually flailed my arms a little bit. That was kind of funny.
Did you? I can't.
I did. It's kind of weird.
All I see are your eyes above the monitor. That's all I see.
Anyways.
You're like the next door neighbor in Home Improvement. That's all
you are. You're totally Wilson from here. Like, all I see is like the just top part of your nose and your eyes and your forehead. It's like watching Wilson across the computer.
All right, we digress. Captain Marvel. All right.
Start back with Yasha.
Where to begin?
Oh, God damn it.
Okay. We'll just
we don't have to start with anybody.
Let's just talk random. We could talk about the Stan Lee cameo, since we already touched on that recently.
Oh, we could. Yeah, I guess to follow up what we just discussed, like the cameo I liked, that whole him studying his Mallrats script on the train, since this is in the 90s.
And saying these lines and...
Yeah, no, I dug that.
It got me.
It did feel like it had been like edited, changed since they had originally filmed it. Because I want to say the first shot of somebody felt like a stand-in. but I've only seen it once. Bobby, you've seen it twice. Maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I get what you're saying because at first I wasn't for sure that was him, but then once she lowered Captain Marvel lowers like the script or whatever, he you see that it's him. But when you first sort of hear his voice, I wasn't for sure that it was him at first, and then yeah, obviously it was. But the way it maybe sort of looks like it may have been edited, and I was heard this somewhere else, is that once they show the shot of her kind of looking at him, it's sort of this extended look and sort of like this smile that she gives, and it's kind of like maybe that got edited in. Like
that was the impression I got, that her reaction to him was probably different than it was originally intended to be.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression I got. Like they initially had one reaction, and then it changed to a different reaction.
It's changed to really a more good. Like kind of acknowledging him. It almost felt like a comfort, like a high stand. Like
yeah.
It was it just felt like it was her just saying like, "Oh, hi Stan."
It was a tip of the hat to you. A tip of my hat to you, sir.
Yeah.
Like it was.
Yeah.
It was touching, and it got me a little bit in the feels, and I loved it a lot. Like it just felt it was a really good goodbye.
Did you guys see Kevin Smith's response to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, what did he say?
Oh, you need to get on his Instagram or his Twitter and take a look at the photo he posts. Like it's he's just like, I'm blubbering like a baby. I've just been referenced in a Marvel film by no other than, my hero. And he's just, it was just, like he was caught up in the emotion of it. And it's really sweet.
Yeah. And as much as I think that's probably one of the things that makes me like this cameo so much is just because I know how much Kevin Smith loves the MCU movies and just the general comic book stuff out there as a whole. But specifically, you can usually catch him on his podcast talking so much about the MCU stuff because of Infinity War and just all the movies. So I'm sitting there imagining him watching this movie and knowing how he would probably feel as he sees that scene unfold. So that's what really makes it special, as well as obviously Stan being there in the 90s and doing his reciting lines for Mallrats. I would say for me, that probably would be my second favorite, but I think it's just right behind on the heels of Into the Spider-Verse. I'm like, should I count that one since it's not MCU, but it's still a Stan appearance, so it's still kind of like, for me, that one's, I think.
You know what? I feel like such an asshole. I didn't even catch it that he was reciting lines for Mallrats. I feel like such a douchebag. Like I really do, because I guess I just missed it. I don't know how I missed it, but I did.
I mean, it's quick. I could see. Like it's a quick glimpse of the script he's holding in front of him that says Mallrats on it. But I could see how you could miss it. And it's not like the camera sits on him for a while.
Yeah, I was so interested in seeing behind what was on the paper. I didn't actually take the time to read it, and I just was like, "What? Really? Oh man, I missed that. Damn it!"
Oh, see, now we all have to go see it a second time. Just how it is.
Amen.
So, what other spoilers? Ben Mendelsohn, awesomeness.
See, I think I'm on the minority side of the Ben Mendelsohn thing because everybody's been praising him, and I felt like, to me, sometimes it didn't feel like his character fit inside the same movie, just because at times it felt a little like it was too much actual Ben Mendelsohn, and it was like slightly campy to a certain extent, and then other times it completely worked for me. But there was just certain times with his posture and the way he was talking, it just kind of almost took me out of it a little bit. Overall, I did like him in it, don't get me wrong, but there was just certain times where it just felt a little too extra, and it was just kind of like, it pulled me a little bit. But I definitely liked his character and would love to see more of his character. And especially when I watched it a second time, getting to pull some of the things that they were doing there with the character and his motivations rang real true, especially when you see that what he's fighting for is to get back his wife or his partner and all of the other refugees that were on the ship.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you mean in that, because I had seen a lot of reactions before I saw the movie that, oh, he steals the show kind of reactions. And I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
That feels a bit much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really enjoyed his performance. I think I see what you're saying, but I guess at the same time, what you're referring to didn't really bother me. And I just really enjoyed him in the role. But I definitely wouldn't argue that, oh my God, he was amazing, he stole the show. I would say calm down a little bit.
Let's back down. I think for me, I think that getting behind that makeup for him in a way was almost freeing. Like, I feel like he was able to feel very comfortable and just do what he felt was right for the role. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Some people get in makeup like that and they just open up, and I think that kind of happened here a little bit, I think.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's a little odd because in that, I don't know about you, but you have an actor who puts on that kind of makeup and it maybe would feel like they're going to play more of a character. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I think what it sounds like you're also saying, Bobby, it's like it does feel like it is just Ben Mendelsohn, like in makeup. But I don't have a problem with it, like, because he is in makeup. It is a different looking character, and this Skrull acting like that worked for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it worked for me as well.
I think where sometimes I really can point to one major scene that I think seemed to pull me, and that was when he's at Maria Rambeau's house, and they find that he's there, and he's just behind them. Mm-hmm. And he's like drinking some soda, mm-hmm. and the way he's talking and the way he's sort of moving, it just felt like it was him in a suit and just doing some shtick for a second. And it was weird because why would a Skrull be drinking? I don't know. It just that one scene really kind of like bugged me a little bit. And then, but everything else in terms of the humor with his character was fine, but it just was certain times where the language, it felt like he was speaking in such a way or acting in such a way that it just felt sort of weird to me. But like I said, on a whole, I did enjoy what he was doing with the role.
So real quick, speaking of Maria Rambeau, what I really liked about what they did with her character is I like that they basically had that entire flight chase scene and she was piloting and she was badass. Like, it was really awesome because I feel like they easily could have been like, oh, well, Carol Danvers is obviously the superior pilot. She's the one that's really awesome. And she is. She's an amazing pilot. But Maria's also a really kick-ass pilot too. And I'm glad that they got to show that. It was like that moment when you get to, really see that like Brody really he's really awesome and kick-ass on his own with Iron Man, like I like seeing that the best friend is also just as badass as the lead character. I'm like, that's right. 'Cause best friends, like that's, the other person's not as weak. They basically are very similar for a reason. And it was just cool. And that was a really awesome chase sequence too, honestly. Just them flying through the canyons and her pulling those maneuvers. I was like, hells yeah, girl, get it.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool scene.
It was.
Can we just address the flirking real quick, though? The flirking?
You're just going to it.
That threw me off. I did not know what the hell that was out of nowhere. I did not expect that. That caught me by surprise. I was like, whoa, wait, what? Whoa, what the shit?
You know what? It was a very like Men in Black moment for me when that happened.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
It was like, whoa, what's happening here? Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Well, so David, I know you had read some Captain Marvel prior to the movie coming out, maybe sometime last year. Was the cat in the comics that you read, or was that later on?
No, that must have been later on because it wasn't in any of the ones I read. So I didn't know what was going on with the cat going into this movie. Like I knew it was something. I knew this wasn't just a cat, and obviously they kind of addressed that pretty quickly. But you still kind of don't know what they mean, like. So when it finally does its first thing, I was like, "Whoa, okay!" I didn't quite expect that. I mean, it didn't bother me. I kind of liked it.
I mean, I kind of wondered, like, and this was just way before we knew what it was, but I was kind of like, is this supposed to be like Annette Bening's like character, like is now embodied inside the cat somehow? The doctor, Dr. Lawson? What was her name? Dr. Lawson?
Yeah.
Like I was wondering for a while, like, did something happen and now her like presence is inside the cat? I had that thought at one point during the film. Do you know what I mean?
That would have been weird. I'm glad that wasn't the case.
No, I am too. I'm just simply saying, like, because it was just, the cat was a major focus. And I'm like, is there something about this cat? And because it was technically Dr. Lawson's cat. So I was like, what's going on here? And I'm glad that's not what the case was, but I definitely was like, obviously something's up with the cat. Like, clearly, there's a lot of focus there.
Well, I mean, while we're talking about the cat, then I'm going to jump to the next thing because now I'm curious to ask everybody. Bobby, I'm going to start with you. Like, what's your feels? What's your thoughts on how Fury lost his eye?
So yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of figured that might be the possibility of what would happen. I'm indifferent, I guess. I would have hoped for something better, just because in the comics, that he kind of loses it in war. And in the MCU, he says he lost it due to someone he trusted or something like that. So it's kind of like to actually see it in what the reality of it, it's kind of like, okay. But then at the same time, I was like, oh, they probably could have did something better, but it didn't bother me.
All right. Yasha, what'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of dumb. Like, I felt like I did. I mean, I just felt like it was kind of rushed. And it was just like, oh, and by the way, this is how he loses his eye. I would have much rather, like, if he was just like, I know this is generic and it's making, I understand that, but like, they're fighting and they're all doing this and stuff like that, maybe almost getting shot, or something ricocheting, but just to have the Flerken basically scratch him, like, I just kind of was like, all right. And it's like, as soon as it happened, I was like, okay, so that's how he loses his eye, whatever. Like, it just felt like a very toss-in moment for me, and I just, I could have done with a different direction or a different thought when it came to it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was a cheap joke, and I eye rolled at it. For a moment it happened, I eye rolled and was like, oh God, what a cheap joke. And then I sat with it for a second, and then I thought back to the scene in Winter Soldier and his whole line delivery, and he says, so how did you lose the eye? He's like, oh, that's the last time I trusted a person, or last time I trusted a friend.
I think the line is, the last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
Right.
The last time, I was wondering if they referenced it. I couldn't remember what it was.
With that line in mind, I'm good with it. But literally, if that line never happened at any point in time in this entire journey in the MCU, I'd really hate this moment.
That's funny that's what changes it for you.
That's what seals the deal for me, because that really shows, like, and it makes sense because of his affection with the cat and him trusting the cat in this whole moment.
I mean, I agree with you. I haven't gotten to my take yet, because it's funny though too, because that's what a lot of people hate about it. A lot of people I'm noticing are looking back at that line and they feel like that means, like, kind of like you're saying, Bobby, it was something major that happened in war or something. Like, it would have been a bigger moment. But I agree though that I think it makes the line even more awesome.
No, it does. It totally does.
Because when you think back to his relationship with this cat in this movie, and how he did seem to, like, he trusted this cat, like he was all lovey-dovey with this cat, and
100%
turns out this cat is this badass monster, and now he's still like, I trust you though, we're friends, right? We're cool, ha ha ha. And no, don't treat me that way. I'm gonna scratch your face. Like, I think it makes the line perfect. It makes it makes me smile when I think back to the line now. And that's why I love what they did with the eye.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also someone who's not tied into any kind of source material with Nick Fury and his backstory and how it's normally done. But I think what I also like about it is that going into this movie, it felt like a thing. Like, okay, so are they going to handle how he loses his eye in this movie? And it seemed to be like, is it going to be a Skrull that does it or what? And for it to just be this cat, even though it's not a cat, but for it to just be this cat, I'm like, see, it's nice that it's not some big thing. Like, we didn't make a thing of it. It's this stupid cat.
Well, it's also why he doesn't talk about it. It's embarrassing. A cat did it.
Right.
Like, that's why he doesn't talk about it. Right. Like, that's why he doesn't.
Thinks it was like, because he didn't tell the Skrulls something and then they did that to him. So it's like,
right.
He makes up a story behind it. And
it's this ongoing joke throughout the entire MCU films. Like, it's this thing. Like, it's awesome. It's even in The Shield. Like, they talk about it in Shield. Like, somebody's like, so Fury's eye. And Coulson's like, don't ask. Like, it's a thing. Like, I love it. Like, it's this whole... it's a whole shtick. I get it. It's great.
What were you going to say, Bobby?
I was just going to say, it's kind of like one of those things where, in a weird sort of way, Coulson's eye could be the same thing as... Joker's scars in the Dark Knight, when they always ask him, like, how did he get this smile or whatever.
The story always changes.
The story always changes. So it could be like he just says something different every time to someone, whoever asks. So it could be his own little inside joke. But I think the funny thing about it is that you would think, okay, the cat scratched his eye or the Flerken scratched his eye, like, why would he lose his eye? But there was a point when Samuel L. Jackson, he's like, oh, it's fine or something. And then the camera shows Talos, and he's shaking his head like, it's not fine.
He has this like ugly, mortified look on his face, and he's like, no, man, it's not good. Okay. It's not going to be okay.
Yeah,
like, that was great.
He knows that. Since it's not a cat, it's something else. That's not just like a regular scratch. So It's probably something that's more poisonous or something that would actually, hurt.
And that's one thing that I did really enjoy is when this, everybody is like, Ben Mendelsohn's reaction to Samuel Jackson when he held up the cat was like, keep that thing away from me. And I'm like, really? Like, I was like, I don't remember the Kree being super scared or Skrulls being super scared of cats. Like, I was completely taken back. I was just like, what are they talking about? Why is his reaction so adverse? But yeah, it totally made it clear later on. Like, clear as fucking day.
Right.
That was another thing that we didn't really talk about that I actually enjoyed, is that once they do the reveal of the Skrulls, they turn out to be the good guys in the story, which is a twist from the comics, because Skrulls have always been traditionally bad guys, and not that the Kree are much better, but the Skrulls have always gotten the bad take in terms of being the villains. And what I liked about this is, one, that they switched it up so that you wouldn't know that, because you're going off your own history of the Skrulls, so you're thinking they're the bad guys. But two, it also makes them more human in a sense, in that we're humans, all humans aren't all bad or all good. There's bad people, there's good people.
Right.
And in this, it makes it to where now you can have good Skrulls and bad Skrulls, which wasn't a thing before, to my knowledge, that there was ever good Skrulls. And so now, like, having that, it still leads a pathway to where you could have a Skrull invasion or secret wars or secret invasion. I mean, to where there could be a faction of bad Skrulls that have, in the interim of between the 90s movie and now, could be like a regime change, and now they have a totally different political outlook, and they're bad, or a certain section of them are bad and trying to do things. So I really like that they made them good in this movie.
Well, it's like, I'm curious to see what the full connection is going to be with. Okay, so Ben Mendelsohn played the character Talos, and he didn't realize he had a daughter, and he has a daughter. And I feel like
Wasn't it a girl before?
I thought it was a girl.
And I've seen it twice.
Oh,
Okay.
maybe it's a boy. I don't know.
I don't know. I
But
don't know. I was wondering.
my point is so Talos has this kid, but I feel like there was moments they specifically said things, and like there's moments where it seemed like there's an interesting focus on his kid. And so I'm like, is this kid going to grow up and play a key role coming up later on that we don't know yet? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was weird. So basically, like, here's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, like, there's a moment where he tells his partner, like, cover her eyes. That's why I think it's a girl, because it's cover her eyes. That's what it was. And so she does, but she still gets away and still sees him shoot,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
right.
Yeah.
And so she sees it, but then she looks back at him, and it's like this weird moment of like, he just shot people or shot whatever,
Like it seemed like there was extra importance put in that moment that felt unnecessary.
But not just that
unless
moment.
it means something else in the future.
And it's not just that moment. It's so Maria's daughter, Monica, says, whenever you change, don't change your eyes, always leave them. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting. Like, and it was really clear. Like it was like that was supposed to have been a background conversation behind the table conversation that was happening in the film. And I'm like, how come all of a sudden you hear this portion of their conversation super crystal clear? And I was like, there's just moments like that. And there was another one, I think, earlier when he first sees his child. But there was like 3 times, and I'm like, that is really, I feel like we're lingering here for something. And I just was like, maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't know.
Right.
But it makes me curious.
I
I love how you guys are like, I don't know. Michelle's crazy, but it's fine.
No, 'cause I didn't get that sense from that. I didn't get that sense from that scene, but I did feel like that they were setting up something with Ronan, because he wasn't in it much, but there's that line that he says, we'll come back for the weapon, and then the one guy is like the cube or the tesseract, and then he's like, no, the woman, and so that's like, well, how does that pay off, knowing what later when you watch Guardians of the Galaxy? So,
see, that's actually what I was kind of disappointed with when it came to the whole Ronan cameo. Like, I thought he would have a much more impactful role in this movie. Like, he really didn't do much. It was more just for the nostalgia type of like, oh, cool, there's Ronan. And then that was it. He just stood there. He didn't do anything. Like, I thought we were going to get a chance to really see him interact with everybody, or see him interact a little bit or something, but he didn't. He didn't do anything. He didn't do shit. I thought it was a wasted moment.
yeah, I mean, you're not wrong in that sense. That's why I feel like maybe they were setting that up for something that we'll see pay off in a sequel, but yeah, I don't know. If they don't, then it does seem like it was kind of a, why use Ronan? Like, you could have used anyone. So
yeah.
It does seem like it was weird in that sense.
Yeah, I'm wondering, is this something that we're going to see it's going to come up during Endgame, or is this something that's going to be even more future down the road? Like, my gears are turning,
Well, you figure it's like, what are they going to do? Sort of similar to Wonder Woman, in that the sequel still will take place
in the past.
Right.
Yeah, in the past.
So it'll take place in like 2010.
Well, yeah, because what? I mean, it would have to be before Guardians of the Galaxy. And Guardians of the Galaxy came out when, in 2014, 13 or so?
2014.
2014? Yeah. So then, yeah, you would think maybe it takes place in 2010. And maybe that's why she wasn't able, like, everyone's sort of saying online, well, how come she didn't help in the first Avengers movie? Well, maybe there is something that happens between her and Ronan, and she's not able to answer some call that maybe Nick Fury did off screen. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they maybe address that, or if they address it at all.
Well, and I'm wondering if it's not so much specifically between her and Ronan, but just her and the Kree in general. Mostly just because I feel like if she were to come back across Ronan, she would have defeated Ronan. So it makes me wonder, maybe it's not even doesn't have to be a flashback. It could be something either at Endgame or even after Endgame that still still involves the Kree and her, but not maybe her and Ronan specifically. Like Roman's predecessor or something.
So do you think the sequel that she's going to have is going to take place after Endgame, or is it going to take place with her off doing her own thing?
I could see it going either way.
Because, I mean, it's like, I mean, I guess, because he says, we're going to come back for the weapon, and he's referring to her. But it's like, we know what happens to Ronan because he interacts with Guardians of the Galaxy, and I feel like that's just, to me, that's just a little bit too much back and forth. Like, oh, this took place before the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then this other movie that she did, this took place before Guardians of the Galaxy. Just remember that, I feel like it's a little bit too much jumping around at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I just think that it's weird because they put themselves in a position where, yeah, you could do another one where it takes place in the past, but at the same time, it's sort of like with Wonder Woman. You see in a sequel with her in the past, but you kind of want to see also some of what she's doing in the current DC universe. But then same thing with Captain Marvel. Once you've seen her in Endgame, you're gonna want to see what she's like in today's world as opposed to kind of telling a story in the past. And especially if they ever want to get to Miss Marvel, who is another MC or Marvel character that a lot of people want to see on the big screen or in some form of live action, because she is inspired by and Captain Marvel is her hero. So that's how she ends up taking on the moniker of Miss Marvel. And I know Kevin Feige has said that he wants to have that character of Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, appear at some point, but you can't get there until the world knows of who she is, in a sense. So maybe that happens in Endgame, but
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it'll be weird to see.
I'm thinking Endgame's going to have a lot more than we think it's going to have.
Yeah, could be, for sure.
But anywho.
There was the other aspect that I think I was interested in to hear at least what you guys thought was that I heard a lot of people talking about, and maybe this is what David was alluding to with some of the 90s needle drops, that people did not like the Gwen Stefani needle drop. I'm Just a Girl.
Oh, that one was actually one of my favorites.
Okay,
I like
Michelle,
that. I like that one too.
Yasha liked it. David, what'd you think?
See, now when did that happen? I forget.
It was like towards the end when she was sort of fully getting her powers, and then
it was after Nirvana's "Come As You Are."
So I feel like there's so many other.
She comes out. Go ahead.
I feel like there's so many other strong women songs that they could have put in there if that's the theme that they're trying to go with that. But I like the Gwen Stefani throwing because like that played really well to the scene that they were doing.
See, and this is one of my things I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the 90s music, but I enjoyed the focus on women's 90s music, and that's what really kind of got me. Like they had some really like late 80s, early 90s Heart playing, and that was awesome. They had No Doubt, they had Hole. Like I was digging in on some of that. Like I was like, I'm feeling this is good, because like for me, those songs for me are what I grew up with in the 90s, and that was an epitome of woman power at the time, and I really enjoyed that. I will say, and as much as I love Nirvana's "Come As You Are," I thought that was kind of weird when she was going up against the the Supreme Intelligence. Yeah, that felt a little weird, but I still kind of liked it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but I liked the No Doubt.
But I mean, that's just. I feel like that's just like it just adds to like what we've talked about when it comes to like maybe the direction wasn't spot on, or as concise as it probably could have been, or when it came to her acting or reciting her lines and doing the roles and some of the stuff like that, it just felt like some of the stuff maybe didn't really niche quite like it was supposed to, or how they envisioned it was going to. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Well, to answer your question, I don't think I had a problem with that. song in particular, but I mean, I don't know. I'll definitely be seeing it again, and then maybe I'll let you know. But I don't think it was that one in particular I had a problem with.
I think a lot of the kickback against it from what I was seeing out there was people felt it was a little too on the nose, like in terms of, okay, we get it. She's a girl. She's got these powers. So it was at this point people were starting to feel like they were getting beat over the head with it. But I don't know. I read it the same way you guys did, honestly. I liked it in that moment. It didn't feel like it was a little too on the nose. I mean, it is, but it just felt like it fit well at that point to me. And it in fact, it felt more like a punctuation mark in terms of now she's fully into her powers and she's kicking ass and that kind of thing. So yeah, I liked it at that point. But
that's exactly how I feel. Like yeah, it's extremely on the nose, but you know what? That's just the thing. It's kind of this joke, you know, that whole song is, oh, you know, it's Gwen Stefani's saying, like, joking, like, oh, I'm just a girl. Look at little old me, Tweedledum, Tweedledee. I'm so silly. And that's the point is it's saying that's how the world is looking at me. And that's not what's happening. Like that's how the world perceives a lot of women, and that's the whole point of that song, is to make fun of the fact that what people seem to think of women is just so incorrect, and we're so much stronger than that. And that's exactly what Brie Larson's literally proving in that moment. And it's just so good. Like, I really liked it. Like, it just what you said, Bobby, it's an exclamation point on that moment. It's like, yep, here I am, boys. I'm here to kick your ass. I liked it.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see the role that she plays in Endgame, because I mean she's had a lot of time to develop her powers and see how strong she's gotten, and it's going to be interesting because she, like, the reaction that she at that final scene, that reaction that she had was not one of like, you know, I'm here to kind of just bullshit, but she looked. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, because since we're in spoilers, why don't you explain that final scene so we can kind of all talk about that?
The mid-credit scene for a prologue for Endgame?
Yeah.
I mean, I just thought it was great. I mean, it was, you know, it's basically one of the strongest lead-ins to, well, I just kind of say hard to one of those strong lead-ins. I guess one of the lead-ins that I was most looking forward to for was Endgame, with, you know, Cap there, Bruce Banner there, what's her name? Scarlett Johansson's character, the Black Widow. Thank you. She was there, and they're all just kind of talking about this destruction and all this that happened, and, you know, what happened to Fury, and that this pager, this device was signaling something, and who is it? And then to have her show up at the end with, you know, looking very different, you know, which I think is good because it's years later, and just the simple question of where's Fury, and I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Like, I'm excited to see their interaction, because she is obviously going to bring a lot of light to who these characters are that they faced in the last movie, in Infinity War, and I think she's going to be absolutely pissed, and at the same time ought to really add another element to this MCU that they've created. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I thought, like, they set that up so good in terms of that's what you're waiting for at that point when you're watching the movie. And, you know, even from the beginning of the movie and throughout the movie, I don't know if you guys felt this way, but there's points where I'm like, I can't wait to get to the end of this movie just so I can see what they're doing with the next movie, because you just know that they're going to have some sort of tie-in to Endgame. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to see what that is, and then to get that moment where it gives you just enough in terms of you're seeing, like Yash mentioned, the effects around the world of what the snap did, and then, you know, they're still trying to essentially figure out what this pager thing is and who's that signal going to, just because like Black Widow said, if it was important to Fury, then it must be something. And then for Black Widow to turn around and then Captain Marvel is just there, it's like, to me, what makes that moment so cool is just that I don't know what kind of defense systems the Avengers headquarters must have, and just the fact that Black Widow is a trained assassin, and no one knew that she even got into the building, let alone was just standing right behind them.
Nobody sneaks up on Natasha, man.
Move. Right. Yeah. And yet she was just like right there. And so I was like, it said so much without saying anything really. And it was just like, yeah. And like Yasha said, when she's just like, where's Fury? She knows it's got to be serious, because she knows that all this time he hasn't paged her that we know of. And now it's going on that it's something big happening. And maybe she knows, because maybe she's witnessed people disappearing on other worlds all around the universe and knows something big is happening.
Yeah, I mean, basically for her, it's been 25, from what we know, 25 years basically have gone by from last time she saw Fury, in essence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it was an interesting scene, even just like the way that Natasha kind of brushes off what Bruce says. I'm like, ooh, there was a cold shoulder. What the hell happened between her and Brucey? Like, I don't know. It was just interesting. It was a very interesting, quick. I mean, for as short as that was, there was a lot of information that came out of that. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how she's going to play. But speaking of her powers, like, it's just as interesting. I was waiting for the whole film for Captain Marvel to just really embrace her powers and just let loose, and to see her basically be a missile of damage shooting through spaceships like they were paper. Like, literally awesome. Basically blowing a nose into tissue. Like, it was just nothing. I was like, holy cow.
That was pretty badass.
So badass. And at the same time, it's amazing, because I feel like, and Bobby, you probably know this more, but I always was under the impression that Captain Marvel is always like in the top like 5 or 3 of the most powerful like superheroes in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, she's definitely, I mean, well, Earth-based, because then once you start getting cosmic level, then there's other people like Silver Surfer and Galactus and all that. But
right, but it's always like her and Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch are always the most, like, they're always up on the list of like the most powerful ones. And it's like, you see what she did and you're like, yeah, I get that. Like, super get that now.
And it's interesting too, because a lot of people either forget or don't know that Rogue got her powers by siphoning off some of the power of Captain Marvel.
That's right.
That's why she's able to be as powerful as she is. So it's just interesting that now we get this character that's essentially like a Superman in a sense, for lack of a better word. That what can she do that I guess, or what can someone else do to stop her, really?
Yeah.
And
I wonder if she and Jean Grey have ever gone toe to toe, like her and Phoenix.
Oh, see, I don't think so. Well, maybe, because there was a whole Avengers versus X-Men comic that came out.
I was just thinking, because I mean, Jean Grey is also one of the most powerful ones too. But anyways, I'm getting off topic.
We're fanboying.
It's fine. It's all good.
David's been quiet. I don't know. What did you think of that last?
He's just been he's been sitting over here with like his hand on his chin, just going,
Really?
This whole, like, he's been taking everything we've said in. I could see him, and he's just like, He's thinking. There's processes happening. I could set the gears are moving hard.
So you're asking me what I thought about the mid-credit scene or the end-credit scene?
Yeah, the mid-credit scene.
I mean, I thought it was fine. Like, you know, I mean, it's not like it's some big revelation, you know, and that we know she's going to be in the movie, and it is kind of cool, like, to see, okay, like, here is an actual scene of her with these other characters, so that's cool. But I mean, it's like half a second, like, her, you know, of her, like, where's Nick Fury, and then boom, it's over. Like, I mean, I'm not like talking trash about the scene. It was fine. It was just, I don't know. I think there's been enough.
In true fashion, it was a teaser. It was just the teaser.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's been enough scenes where it was like a big revelation kind of thing that's not what this was, you know. I mean, unless you were someone who didn't know if she was going to be in the movie, which I don't know how you would have thought she wouldn't have been in the movie.
Right.
I would say maybe that's possible only in the fact that the general audience that isn't like so in tune to everything.
And
because
I'm
they're
with
seeing
you, yeah.
for the first time. And then the two little things that we've had for Avengers Endgame never showed her in it. So it could be a surprise for that general audience.
Right.
But the people know already.
And then the very end credit scene is cute. Like, if anything, though, and I talked about this on Spoiler Effect, I actually was kind of a little disappointed in the scene in the end because it was like, it seemed so obvious that that's what the cat, Flerken, whatever the hell it's called, was going to do. Like, it's going to puke up the Tesseract. But because it was so obvious, part of me was really hoping it was just going to be like, in the end, just the cat, like, coughing up a fur ball onto, like, his keyboard or something and then just walking off. I thought that would have actually played better and been funnier.
That would have been funnier.
Because it was just like, duh, she's about to puke up the Tesseract. And then, but when she actually did that, I was like, oh, well, that was obvious.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. It would have been funnier if it had just been like a huge ass hairball and then she just was like, ugh, and then walks off of his desk.
Right.
Like she does it right on his keyboard, like a cat would, just to be like, you know what? Fuck you today.
Exactly.
There you go. Like, it would have been such a cat thing to do. But no, it's obvious it's going to be the Tesseract. And sure enough, there it is in all its blue glory.
Clean that shit up.
Right.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. As always, we'd love to hear back from everybody. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. Reach out to us on Twitter and Instagram at @flicker_effect. You can find these episodes on YouTube at youtube.com/flickereffect. And you can always just visit flickereffect.com for all of your Flicker Effect and Spoiler Effect needs. You can download episodes there, stream them there, find links to us on Apple Podcasts and such. So yeah, go check that out. With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening.